further into this, but before I do this, I want to mention something that Otis said to me during the break. Using the word fear, but making an acronym. So F, face, E, everything, face everything, which is honesty, and recover. That's very good. Face everything and recover as an acronym. So on pages 59 to 63 in the book, there are what's
have their book here.
Sorry?
Yes.
Anybody not have their book here? Everybody have their books? Okay, great.
No,
Oh.
this fellow.
It's right there. Scott, oh, you have one? Okay, good.
So pages 59 to 63 has what's known as the 6 stages of moral development. So I'd like to go over that with you and see where it might lead us. Lawrence Kohlberg and Carol Gilligan are the two people behind this. Lawrence Kohlberg was a professor at Harvard University, and his study was of boys and men and how they grow in their moral development and following their conscience and that kind of thing. And Carol Gilligan, who was one of his students, did her research on girls and women. And the combination of the two, they came up with these 6 stages. And the thing that they say is that you can be in more than one stage at the same time, depending on your development. And that this development hopefully starts in childhood. But for some of us it didn't happen, but perhaps if not then, later. When you meet somebody that's a significant adult, like a coach or a teacher or counselor or a chaplain or somebody who put you on the right track. So the stage 1 is what they call the infantile phase, which is what a young child, the way a young child would act. And that is the stage of punishment and obedience, you know, to your parents or to your whoever's taking care of you as a child. And it's literal obedience to rules and authority. You don't like reflect on it a lot and think, well, is there any gray area here? You just do what you're told to do. You're motivated solely by self-interest. I don't want to be punished. I don't want to have time out. I just want to live my life.
And play.
Mm-hmm. And play. But the question one asks, and even though this is the infantile, even though this is for young people, this question has been asked over the years by people in their 50s and 60s as well as in their 4- and 5-year-olds, and that is, what can I get away with? But that, if that's the question you're asking yourself, you're in the infantile phase of the moral development. What can I get away with? You know, without getting punished, without getting caught, you know, whatever the situation is. And then stage 2, still, you know, you're in the early stages of moral development. What is right is following rules when it is to my immediate self-interest, which means I don't really have a sense of the common good. I'm really thinking about me more than everybody else. And so the focus is less on avoiding punishment and more on maximizing personal gains. The question is, okay, what's in it for me? See, the focus is on me, not on you, not on you. It's on me. And there's a fair amount of selfishness in this. Stage 3, okay, now you're older, you're let's say in your early 20s, and this stage, it was emphasized especially by Carol Gilligan because of the emphasis on interrelationships, which women are on the average more proficient than men are. This stage is characterized by an attitude which seeks to do what will gain the approval of others. Now, some of that's okay, but some of it isn't, because if the gaining approval of others is going to stretch my value system, we're off into here again. But if gaining the approval of others in itself is not bad. We all need to be liked. We all need to be respected. We all need to be thanked. We all need to be appreciated, respected. That's just a normal human thing, and that's good. That's good to have that, right? And it's just that you don't want to jeopardize it by compromising your values. So there is an awareness of shared feelings with, let's say, a group, agreements, and expectations. This stage follows the golden rule, which is basically do unto others as you wish them to do unto you, whereas the stage 2 would be do unto others before they do unto you. It's different kind of slant on that. The question one asks, oh, this is a morality of care. Okay, this is somebody who cares about other people. You know, nurses, social workers, some people in law enforcement who are firefighters who are concerned about the community and who, you know, are doing their best to help the community. The question one asks at this stage is, how will this decision affect my relationships? So let's say you go to work for a company and doesn't have to be a big company, it can be McDonald's or Wendy's or the post office or any place, you know. Other people are working there, and so you're part of a team. And let's say you're working in, I did this in high school, you're working in a hamburger place, and you're new, and so they put you in the kitchen washing dishes and doing other things, and the boss says to you, I want you to use this fluid to wash the dishes with, right? But you've been around and you know what's good fluid and what isn't good fluid, and you look at that thing and you think, gee, I think my mother told me that's not good for you, that stuff. Now you might want to check that with your mother. Go home and say, Mom, you know, they want me to do this with this fluid, and what do you think? And she says, oh gosh, no, that's dangerous stuff. You can't do that. But it's cheaper. You see, that's why the boss wants it. It's cheaper to buy this stuff than it is to buy the stuff that's good for you. So you go back to work, and you're back in the kitchen, but you got to talk to the boss about this, and because he may not know, he may not understand that this is not good stuff. You may get lucky. You may get a boss who's really a good guy or a good woman, and they really don't want to harm anybody, and so they say, "Oh, you're absolutely right. Let's throw that out and let's get the good stuff." I don't know how that stuff got in here. Yeah. Or you may get an unscrupulous boss who says, "Do as you're told, or get out of here." And then there's this, okay, how will this affect my relationships? Well, how will this decision if I say, so you got some options here. You got some options. You can be a whistleblower. You can be a whistleblower even with a company like McDonald's, right? You can say, okay, I don't want to get fired. But I don't want to use this stuff, so I'm going to tell higher management what's going on here. And if they don't listen to me, okay, I'm going to go to the Las Vegas Review-Journal, and then bang, it's going to hit the papers. You know, of course, you're going to lose your job. You got to figure that. You might want to plan ahead. maybe you want to get a job, have a job possibility before you throw everything to the wind here. So how will this decision affect my relationships? Yeah, how will this relationship affect my relationship with my boss and therefore my job? You know, that kind of thing. But if you're in this integrity, if you're a person of integrity, and another part of this, which is really important, is having a sense for the common good of society. So it's not just about me, it's about the integrity of the community. You know, it's about helping the community. It's about making the community a better place by who I am and by my actions and by the things I choose to do and by the things I don't choose to do. So that's part of this number 3 in the positive sense of it. You know, how will this decision affect my relationships can also be positive in the sense of how will this decision make the world a better place. Number 4, getting a little bit more moral here. At this stage, the person believes in following rules and laws, both in letter and in spirit, and that this behavior will contribute most to the common good of society. There is a firm belief in the benefits of rules in civil society. Rules as simple as the traffic light, right? One of the dangers in this town is red light runners. You know, I've got to the point now where if I'm at a stop light and it's red and it turns green, I look both ways as if I was walking, but I'm in my car. I look both ways to make sure this guy down here or this guy's not going to run the red, because if he does, I mean, I'm in the middle of that intersection. Yeah, so I just look both ways, and I don't see traffic coming. I just cross over. Yeah.
That happened this morning on the news. They had a truck coming down at an intersection, and a car went zipping through, and there was a kid going through.
Oh.
And the kid was right in the middle of these cars, and he was okay though.
Wow.
But the other two were messed up bad.
Yeah. So one of them ran the red.
Well, it was either a stop sign or a red. I couldn't tell from the video.
Well, okay. Okay. So, but see, and that when I see somebody running a red, some of my old black street talk comes into my mind, but I don't say it out loud, or I'm Italian, so I have certain gestures I can make, but I don't do those. So I did that once, and unfortunately I had my collar on when I did it, and the guy yelled at me, "You're a priest, you shouldn't be doing that." It was well, shall I show it to you?
Yes.
So he got the message, but he had cut me off, and that's why. So anyway, I try not to do that too often. It goes against my principles.
You're only human.
I'm only human. Thank you. Yeah. So okay. So people at this stage believe in following rules and laws, both in letter and spirit, and that this behavior will contribute most to the common good. There's a firm belief in the benefits of rules in civil society, otherwise we're in chaos. Fairness. Fairness is a key value. The question is, how does this decision maintain fairness, order, and uphold both the letter and the spirit of the law? So this person, when you get to this stage, you're a thinking person, you're reflective, you're willing to take the time and the energy to look at this without jumping into it too fast. You know, if it's the the kind of decision that takes more time to think about. Stage 5, people at this stage accept obligations to others as a given, okay, the common good, and tend to consider rules, laws, and dictates with a critical eye. So, let's say I'm in South Africa before the end of apartheid, and I'm against apartheid, and I'm white, okay? So sir,
That's the director's phone.
I believe that, is there a choir in the background here? Okay. So you're in South Africa. You're white, but you're against apartheid. So you would tend to consider rules, laws, and dictates of the white minority with a critical eye. So you wouldn't, you would accept that a lot of the rules are against human nature or against the common good of everybody or against, so you're going to, and some people made a stand. There was a fellow, Bayers Naude, who was Dutch Reformed Church, which was the church that backed, that's where they got their skewed theological basis for apartheid. He was being groomed to be eventually prime minister, but he had two things happen to him. One, he was a minister, and he went for a visit into the gold mines in Johannesburg, and he found that the conditions for the African workers were abysmal, really bad and dangerous, and that gave him a whole. It just kind of opened up his thinking, his social conscience. And the other thing is that he reread the Bible where they took apartheid from and realized that it was false. And of course that really hit his basic foundation, because his belief as he grew up was that this was the truth, and now he realizes it's a lie. So he became an outspoken advocate against apartheid. He did what's in number 5. And as a result of that, first of all, he was banned. And banned at that time meant that you couldn't go outside of a 5-mile radius of your home. You couldn't walk it, you couldn't drive it, you couldn't go with somebody else. You were trapped in that 5-mile radius for however long you were sentenced to that. And I don't know how long he was sentenced to that. And he was ostracized. He was shunned by his fellow Dutch Reformed people who had been his friends, because that's what he was. And now he's, so he's walking a different path. He loses them as friends, but then of course he gains a lot of other friends who are also against apartheid, both white and black. So one of the crazy things that I ended up doing in 1984, I think it was, I was invited to go to South Africa and to give talks on the social mission of the church, of the Catholic Church, social mission of the church, and that has to do with social justice, and that means against apartheid. And so, and before I left to go on this trip, people who invited me had sent me some articles to read about the situation in the country and some of the dangers of speaking out, and the people who were in jail, white and black. And the more I read this, the more fearful I got. Not of rejection in that sense, but of physical danger and the possibility of, if I spoke out, would I end up in jail and whatever happens there, and in that country. And then I met this woman who was a friend of another Jesuit, and she told me, she was from South Africa, she was visiting the U.S., she told me, you should expect government informers at your talks. You should just expect them. They'll be there. So the question for me was, how much do I say and to whom shall I say it? You know. So what? In the first week that I was there, the people who were in charge of my being there took me to meet this fellow Bayers Naudet, and stage 5, probably stage 6 man. I arrived at his house. They let me off. They said we can't go in. He can only see one person at a time. That was part of his punishment. So we're going to let you off here at the front of the house. I went in. His wife greeted me at the door. She said, Bayers is out back talking to somebody in the garden. He'll be finished in a while. Just come in, sit down, and would you like a cup of tea? And I said that'd be fine. And so I'm sitting there thinking, what have I got myself into? I'm in South Africa. Good Lord. And so eventually he comes to the door and he walks in, and I stand up and I go to greet him, and we greet each other, and then he goes, house is bugged. We have to go out in the back. Come on. So we go out into the back. That's why he was meeting people in the garden, because the house was bugged. Wow. So we go out to the garden, and he's giving me his take on what's happening in the country at the time, which was before the end of apartheid. And then I think to myself, you know, this guy, I'm really impressed with this guy. I'm going to ask him to be kind of my spiritual mentor for this trip, because I'll see him again at the end of the month. So I said to him, I've got some anxieties about this trip, and thinking that he would say, well, you don't have to worry about if you get caught saying something against the government, because they'll just deport you. Instead, as I'm telling him my fears, he says, well, let me tell you some of what people I know who have been to jail have told me how to best handle being in jail. Let me tell you how to be in jail if that's in fact what happens to you if you speak out. So, okay, so then he gives me all that. So the first talk I gave was to about 100 religious sisters, you know, nuns, about 3/4 African and about 1/4 European, 100. And I gave a talk on the social mission of the church, non-threatening, and not going to get me in any trouble, just kind of laying out the principles. And so 3 of the sisters who were kind of in charge had decided that they would mingle with the rest of the sisters and find out if how the sisters felt about the first day, and to give me input for the second day. And so that evening we were having dinner together, the 4 of us, and the sisters said, well, in general people felt good about the day, but some of the African sisters would like you tomorrow to be more explicit about the evils of apartheid. Well, that means, and then one of the other sisters says, oh, and by the way, there was a woman there today that none of us knew. In other words, there was a government informant there. So, having the courage that was given to me by Bayers Naudet, I sat down that night and I wrote out a talk that I felt really kind of inspired by the Holy Spirit putting this together, because I just wrote out the evils of apartheid. I mentioned Satan. I mean, I was all out on this, and I was going to give this in front of these sisters, and whether or not there's going to be a woman there or as an informer, had somehow God had taken that fear away from me, and but I had a lot of, when I got up in front of everybody that morning, my adrenaline was pumping, I was hanging on to the podium, but I gave it as I had written it, and then found out later that that woman had not returned. so if you dodge that bullet. But I learned a lot from that guy, Bayers Naudet. He was the one. He was a stage 5, stage kind of 6 man, and his way of living and witnessing and taking the results of that, the punishment that he received, the ostracization that he received, and everything else, gave me the courage to do it. So then we move to stage 6. And now stage 6 is the stage of universal ethical principles, right? Which you hope that heads of state would have, like presidents and prime ministers and leaders of states around the world, of justice, equality, human rights, and respect for the dignity of the human person. The reason for doing the right thing, which is integrity, is that as a rational person, one has seen the validity of principles and has become committed to them. That's commitment, that's integrity. This person places a high value on integrity and has the courage to live out their convictions. Now, in terms of South Africa, for me, that's Nelson Mandela. The question one asks at this stage is, what do I believe is the truly right thing to do? I'm asking that question because that's what I want to do. I want to do the truly right thing in that stage. That person has either gotten past their fears or has some kind of a mantra to deal with their fears so that they are free to be as they need to be. Any questions on these? One other thing to say about fear. We got the fear of rejection. The basic fears that come to mind for me in these stages, and also in what we talked about earlier, are the fear of failure, the fear of making a mistake, the fear of what I might find in the personal inventory, which is in the step 4 in AA, the fear of what I might find in myself, right, which is all part of that, looking at every aspect of myself. Fear of the future. Will I lose the job, for example? And also, an interesting fear which I think is connected to addictions, and that is the fear of the mundane, of the ordinariness of life. Sometimes life is exciting, sometimes it's depressing, but most of the time you're in the middle and you're just living the ordinary every day. Sometimes it's boring, sometimes it's not, but you're just living life. And some people have a fear of that, and so they want to do something to make it different, so they'll take an extra drink or they'll take drugs or whatever to make themselves feel better. Of course, better doesn't always mean best, so you end up going down the wrong road. Or fear of being bored. All that kind of stuff there. So I use this prayer, which is basic. It's a basic prayer, and it's just if I realize I've got some kind of fear, which most all of us have at some point or another, I just pray, Lord, free me from the fear of, and then name it. What it is: fear of the rejection, fear of making a mistake, fear of the future, fear of the ordinariness of my life, whatever it is, fear of it, so that I'm at peace, no matter what's going on. And that's all part of the integrity. So, any questions on this or comments? Yes.
I wanted to bring up the fact that people can be addicted to many things like drama. They need drama in their life to feel normal. But there's many addictions. Drugs and alcohol are easy to spot, but there's so many. Power and greed.
Mm-hmm. Sex.
Sex is a big one, yeah. I think we all went through that when we were adolescents, young.
Sure. Right. Yeah.
I read this a little last night too, and I was thinking, how's the best way to experience personal conflict with turning that around to the benefit for yourself? I know you said pray.
Sorry, which stage?
Experiencing personal struggle.
Yeah.
And then you reflect upon it. What is the best way to get the negative out and bring in the positive?
Well, I think there's a couple of things. One is to have somebody you trust that you can talk to. Somebody who is not addicted, in the sense that, what's your first name?
Don.
Don. In the sense that Don was talking about it. Somebody who's got it together, and you know, everybody's human, but somebody who can help you because they're solid in themselves. That's number one. Well, it's sponsored if you're an AA, but you know, that kind of person. Yeah. Personally, I have temptations too. You know, I'm a human being, so for me, prayer is important, because if I'm connected to the Lord, if the channels are open between me and God, and not clouded by either fear or confusion or doubt or an addiction, in as much as those are open, then that I experience help that way.
What step would you think that falls into?
In you mean in AA?
No, in the
in this?
orders.
Probably 5 and 6. 5 and 6 stages are, you know, you're dealing with your issues, you're keeping a clear mind, and to the best of your ability, you might fall every once in a while, but you get back, and every time you come back, you get a little bit stronger, and that kind of thing.
Thank you.
Sure. Yeah.
Isn't it also true we have only the now? So rather than worried about the future or what happened to us yesterday, isn't it part of the spiritual exercise, like to live for the now? That's the only time we have anyways.
Well, the now is very important. Yeah, the present moment is very important, but it's good to learn from past mistakes. So if I did something wrong yesterday, it's good to remember, oh yeah, what led me to that, and why did I do it, and how can I not do it today? So that's one way that the past can help you with the future, with the now, right? Yeah, future, we have no idea. I could walk out across the street and get hit by a car. I don't know what's going to happen. You just kind of live your life to the best of your ability and trust that somehow you'll end up in heaven. Yeah.
Yeah, so that then we have to forgive our past. So there's certain things that we cannot, because it's subliminally embedded in our soul. So something we cannot change as we know God, so we give it to Him. But something that we can change, we can kind of reprogram ourselves by affirmation or praying or etc. So since we have to clean our soul, we have to forgive, keep forgiving. That's what you learn. Yes, of course. If you have that kind of conscious mind, anyway, you will always learn from the past. You will never repeat it again.
Hopefully.
Yes, that's what I was trying.
And actually, see, the thing is with AA, with the 12 steps, the step where you take the inventory, you have to look at the past and all the ways you screwed up and all the people you offended and all the things that you did that were wrong, stealing money from your parents to buy drugs or whatever it was. You have to look at the past in order to be freed for the future in that sense. And also, when you mention forgiveness, actually in the book there is a chapter on forgiveness, and let's see what number that is. Chapter 6, blessed are those who are able to forgive, for they will be forgiven. Yeah, but at some point you have to forgive yourself. There's no question about it. That's, for me, that came because I experienced God forgiving me, and if God can forgive me, well then I have to be able to forgive myself. I mean, if God can forgive me, I can forgive myself. Although that takes time, and because there's lots of things that I might need to forgive myself for. I may have to take one at a time, not all in one big fell swoop.
Yeah.
Yeah. Does that make sense?
Yes, I mean, we have to give time.
Yeah. Well, let me see if anybody over here said funny. No. Okay. All right.
Okay, one more question, and I'll try to somebody else have one. Ethical failures by those bigwigs like Enron and all those guys. That ended up affecting other people.
Oh yeah.
So, how does the little guy look at that? I mean, how does he accept the fact that this guy did this, but he might have been right along with him until that happened? So, I mean, how do you see that?
Life is not fair.
Sums it up. That sums it up real well.
That's it. I mean, it's not fair. Now, with the time I've got left, though, I'll take you through, and I don't think this is in the book, but I can make a copy of this for you, for everybody, and you can have it. There's
I can scan it.
Okay, there's a fellow named Hank Shea from Minnesota. Who's from Minnesota? Minnesota. This guy's from Minnesota. Teaches in Minneapolis at St. Thomas University, and his name is Hank Shea. He's a former federal prosecutor of white-collar criminals, and he did this for about 15 years. And in the process of doing this, he realized that there were lessons to be learned from these people who had committed these crimes, and so he put together a list of 10 lessons that he learned from white-collar criminals. Now, these are criminals who shared with him what happened and why they did what they did and that kind of thing, right? So here are the 10, starting with number 10. But these you can apply no matter what kind of job you're in, whether you're executive or whether you're a janitor. This is good stuff. So each person will get a copy of this. Number 10, when faced with a when faced with a right versus a wrong decision, right, wrong, guard against that first intentional misstep. Okay, oh, just this one time, nothing will happen. If I just do this one time, so that's known as going down the slippery slope that ends up, I'll just have this one drink. It won't really, I need this drink, but it's okay, I'll be fine. Okay. So, guard against that first intentional misstep. Number 9, never knowingly sign a false document. Let's say you're at the police station and they want you to sign something and you know this is not true. This is not true. I did not do this. Don't sign it. Right? Get a good lawyer. Number 8, never compound or try to bury your mistakes. Cover-ups. Richard Nixon went down because of cover-ups. Former President of the United States. So never compound, never add on, and never try to bury them, right? So that nobody will find out. Well, it'll always come out somehow or another. Number 7, do not follow directions from others you believe to be improper or unethical. Well, that fits into the fear of rejection, see? Because, the more I fear rejection, the more I'm going to follow, even though I know this is wrong. But the fear of rejection is greater, let's say, than my integrity. So that's why you got to build up your integrity. Number 6, no matter what your position in your organization, lead by example. Be the best janitor you can be. Be the best domestic worker you can be the best casino valet you can be whatever you can be to the best of your ability. Lead by example. Other people hopefully will follow in your stead. Number 5, avoid the perils of willful blindness, which means, something illegal is going on over here, but I just kind of turn my head and let it go on because I don't want to get involved. Okay. Number 4, When faced with an ethical dilemma, seek advice and counsel from others. Don't try to go it alone. Get help. Get support. Okay. Number 3, learn to be satisfied with what you have legitimately earned. Greed is a vicious vice that can destroy you. Right? So be at peace with what your salary is. You might want to get more. You want to get a raise, whatever. That's fine, and you can work for that and ask for that. But learn to be with what you have legitimately earned, and don't steal to get more. Lesson number 2: no one, big words, no one is above the law. Some people think they're above the law, but no one is above the law. This is a core principle. No matter how powerful, wealthy, or famous one becomes, everyone is still subject to the same laws that govern us all and enable us to live in a civilized society. But you see, every once in a while, somebody gets caught doing something because they thought they were above the law. Or it didn't apply, well, it doesn't apply to me. It doesn't apply to me. Just to you people out there. And number 1, above all, at all times, wherever you live or work, do 3 things. Act with and foster integrity, exhibit and reward courage, and honor and protect your reputation and your organization's reputation. So, any final questions or comments? Yes.
What exactly is organizational behavior? Like, could you elaborate on that term?
Organizational behavior, for example, let's say you're in a company and they discriminate in hiring practices and will not hire Jews, or will not hire Mexicans, or will, you know, that's an organizational decision. That's an organizational structure. That's illegal, by the way, but it's still, some companies are like that. You can have a culture of an unethical culture in your organization, so that and if you're in something like that, then you need to either get out or blow the whistle. But discrimination would be an example of a structural thing. Does that make sense to you?
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm somewhat familiar with it, but I happen to come from a Hebrew background myself. Is there there's not really a problem, even though it might appear that a company would be profiting at the time and stuff like that, but if they practice this or have this organizational practices, don't they ultimately hand it over to someone who's actually doing what they're supposed to do?
Yeah, but some companies in 2002 went under. Arthur Andersen, which is a huge law firm, accounting firm, they went under because of the unethical practices they were doing with Enron. So everybody lost their jobs in that company. A lot of people lost their job. Both companies, a lot of people lost their jobs. But, you know, so that's, an organization can go under just as a human being can go under.
Didn't a lot of teachers lose their pensions too?
Oh, and teachers lost their pensions, right? I mean, really bad
There was
stuff.
the innocent victims last week.
Yeah, a lot of victims there. But you mentioned the Bible, and yesterday I was preparing to celebrate what we call Mass, and the first reading was this. It's from Proverbs, chapter 30. Every word of God is tested. Put falsehood and lying far from you. God is a shield to those who take refuge in him. Every word of God is tested. put falsehood and lying far from you. God is a shield to those who take refuge in him. Well, I think it's time for lunch, so thank you very much.
Before we do that, does anybody have any questions about Ignatius, the Jesuits, anything? Any other questions? Everybody, next. Okay, so Sherry is.
Wait.
Quick one.
Yeah.
There was a documentary movie from PBS channel.
Sorry.
A documentary movie.
Oh, documentary, yeah.
From PBS channel.
Yeah.
About the Rome, the Catholic Rome, the bishop over there.
Yeah.
How it is kind of like corrupted.
It was corrupted. The
Yes.
Vatican Bank was a mess.
So now my question to you is really, is the Bible, I do believe in God, no question about it, but is it really Bible not distorted a little bit, even if it's telling the truth, a bit halfway or somehow?
Well, the thing is with the Bible is, you know, there are some books that are like Book of Revelation, which is a lot of symbols. You've got to find out what does a symbol mean. There are misinterpretations of the Bible, just as there are misinterpretations of the Quran. You know, and when you get into that, you end up with apartheid in South Africa, or you end up with the jihadists in the Middle East, with distortions of both the Bible and the Quran.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I don't mean to. So, to me, my personal opinion is it's purposely decoded that way so we don't get knowledge out of it, because if as a mass, a lot of people understand the power of God, if we understand God how it is, so we all be powerful. You understand that's Almighty God power. So I think it's deliberately, purposely decoded so the average Joe would not find it, so we can be a slave of, you know, everyday living rather than thinking. So I think it has something with higher power, higher people somewhere, something. Not a conspiracy theory, I don't believe that, but it's purposely done that way, to my opinion.
Sure. Okay. Yeah.
I have my notes right, but he died, Ignatius died in 1561.
Sorry?
56.
Yeah, and then he was,
Who?
He was a saint in
Ignatius.
1622. Is that correct, 1622?
15.
No, he's beatified.
Oh, beatified. Yeah.
What does that mean?
Became a saint.
Became a saint.
Canonized a saint in the Catholic Church. Yeah.
So that seems a long time, 70 years. Is that how long it takes?
Oh, it can be long time. Can be 200 years.
Before they recognize what he
Yeah,
does.
whoever the person is, men and women.
Yeah.
Sure. There's no real time frame for that. There's all kinds of research done, and the person who's being considered for sainthood has to have some miracles attest to him, like somebody gets cured because they touched a metal that belonged to him or something, and the doctors say this is impossible that this happened, that kind of thing. That's considered a miracle. You have to have those. It's a long process.
When you first started going to the Jesuit University, you studied the Pilgrim's Journey. Is that Ignatius' novel? Is that notes, right?
No, that was, let's see. Sorry?
Ignatius' novel, is that called
His
Pilgrim's
autobiography.
The
Autobiography of the Nations.
and what about it?
Journey?
It said that you studied it.
Did I study it? Well, in the Jesuits, yeah, but not in college. When I got in the Jesuits, that was part of the first 2 years of the novitiate, was looking at the history of our society. Actually, Jesuit is a nickname for Society of Jesus, and our constitutions and all that kind of thing. That was what. But in college, I wasn't interested in this stuff. I was a playboy. I wasn't interested in. Remember when I went to Europe? I was traveling with this guy who really wanted to go to Pamplona because he wanted to see the place where Ignatius was injured. Big deal. I had no interest in that. I wanted to go to Pamplona to run with the bulls.
Right.
Did he become a Jesuit?
Who?
The guy you went?
Oh, no, he got married. I think he's married twice. I think he got married and annulled and married the same woman again. And then wanted to get another annulment. Anyway, yes?
I have a question for you. My understanding is that America, privately owned corporation, it's a Maryland corporation, owned by the Bank of England and.
Bank of America.
Yes. Anyhow, it's like 6 major banks involved.
Not a while back, so.
It goes up through the families that survived the fall of Rome and up to the Vatican. Now, my understanding is that this is the core issue that Americans aren't talking about, because it's a private corporation, and our government, our Congress and all that, have to answer to the stockholders, not to us.
Well, the stockholders, though, are the voters.
Well,
We can vote them out,
Well, what I'm saying, that's a facade.
but you
Of
can vote. You
democracy.
can vote them out. We can vote out the people you don't want in office. You know that we had that right.
Yes, this is true, but it's the higher allegiance is to the stockholders. That's why they're doing these idiotic things in Congress. I'm just curious are you aware of this, or?
I don't have I'm in the 14% of the United States that doubts Congress can do anything. They've got the lowest popularity in history right now. 14% of the people in the United States
And that's a high
think
number.
that the Congress can do anything.
Yeah.
Vote them out. Get some new blood in there. That's what I say.
Okay.
All right. Anyone else? Well, thank you very much for your participation and for inviting me here. And
One more.
yeah, one more. Yes.
Would you please kindly tell me where is the seat of the soul? You know?
The who?
The seat of the soul.
Seat of the soul. Seat of the soul. I don't know how to answer that.
Okay, understand.
Will you sign my book?
Certainly. I'll sign anybody who wants their book signed. I'll sign it. It'll only cost you $5. No, I'm just kidding. Anyway, I really enjoy coming and doing this class, and because I experience here people who are motivated to change their lives, and that's wonderful. And if I can help you in any way, I do have a website if you're interested. It's ethicsinthemarketplace.com. Ethics in the
Are we gonna be
marketplace.
able to keep these books, Director?
I don't know yet. It depends on you.
Oh,
Right?
well, okay, but how are we going to sign them then?
Well, whoever takes it will have your signature on it. Whoever-
Yes, I can do that. I can just put God bless you.
Put my name,
Okay, sure.
but I plan on
Well,
getting.
real quick, your views on Pope Francis.
Oh, I love him. I think he's terrific. I think he has done more in a year than 30 years before. I mean, he's opened up. I know atheists who like him. I mean, he has a universal appeal as a simple man who's not caught up in all the trappings of office and who is concerned about the common person. I mean, I think he's remarkable. That's my opinion. Plus, he's a Jesuit.
About the other Jesuits.
That's right.
Anyway, huh? No, he's not the general. We have a general, too.
He's one of the first Jesuits.
He is the first. We never thought there would be one, because we're not supposed to aspire to higher office.
Wait. Okay, well, let's give Father Max a hand. I need to get a picture.
A picture. Yes.
Sherry's outside.
I'm going to stop the broadcast.
Yes, please.
There you go, sir.